Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat from the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage.
All right, excellent work. The 5 and 39 talk is what they just yelled in my ear.
I
just
heard it.
Talk,
Yeah.
talk,
That's your life, man.
talk. The 5 and 39 Pistons beat Oklahoma City by 16 at home yesterday.
Any given Sunday.
The city of Detroit surely is thrilled today. Under any other circumstance, Stugotz, except what happened yesterday, I tell you, Detroit's playing in that game, and they lose by 3 points, 34-31, and the city of Detroit is thrilled with the season that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Just delighted with an amazing season. But when you gag that game up the way they did, and you know how much I dislike that we've made sports about blaming people instead of crediting them, but in those games yesterday, the losers deserve the blame for being maximum losers, and I'm stunned that America, which is divided on everything, evidently today, a historic day, is in unison on we're all pro field goal. We've never loved field goals so much. Jess, are you going to be with me? Because I'm going to go the other way on this. I haven't heard much of anybody do anything except crush Dan Campbell for playing the way he has all season and, according to Next Gen Stats, doing the things that had the best probabilities. Because this year, Stugotz in plus territory,
Yep.
they went for it on 4th and 3 or shorter 20 of 24 times and converted 17 of the 20. They're good at that. Dan Campbell wants to scare you on offense, wants you to be backpedaling. You can't control that Reynolds is going to suddenly drop the ball.
There's a time and a place, Dan, and you have to go by feel of the game. You do. You just have to go. Occasionally, Dan, you have to go by the feel of the game. And at 24-10, they've scored a touchdown second half. You want to give your team a 3-score lead. And to not go for the field goal in that spot, to not go for the field goal later in the second half, that's a terrible job. I'm sorry, by Dan Campbell.
All right. So let me come at this another way, okay, because we can argue about this. And I don't have a ton of conviction about what I'm saying to you, but I'm going to set up the argument on the other side because most people are going to say, well, go for it all the time. Nah, it's different going for it when you don't have behind the safeties to play with. You're close to the end zone. 4th and 3 from the 5-yard line, it's more difficult because you can't get beyond the safeties. When you play reward versus risk, going for it on 4th and 3, you want the option of a 60-yard touchdown because you want to be able to use the whole field. But what I would say to you about this that I think is being missed is the following. A lot of people, are presuming in these situations that the field goals are going to be made. First of all, at which point, if it gets missed, you're going to be the first one there. Campbell, you played that way all season. Why are you a coward in that spot? Because we have the results now. But the second one, I think, is just as interesting because this part is something that as I'm watching these games, I wonder why it's not taken into consideration. If Campbell kicks the field goal to tie, under what circumstance in that second half did you have them stopping San Francisco when San Francisco wanted to score? Under any circumstances, because all San Francisco did, like when we're sitting here talking about coaching decisions, why isn't anyone talking about the fact that at half, whatever the adjustments were, Detroit couldn't score anymore, and all San Francisco did was go up and down the field. The best unit I saw yesterday, Stugotz, of any kind, was the Detroit Lions offensive line in that first half. Over the last 4 weeks, San Francisco has allowed 5 yards a carry to running backs.
Right.
4 weeks, they allowed the ball to be run. What makes you think if Detroit had tied the game that San Francisco wouldn't have just kept scoring? They were doing it the entire second half. To me, the worst thing that happened in that game of any kind, Stugotz, was at the very end, and we love the last stuff. This part is super weird to me because I thought we always choose the last thing to question, not the things before that. Everyone's talking field goals, and the fact that they ran the ball on third down and then had to use one of their timeouts and couldn't keep all 3 timeouts, that was the biggest coaching decision mistake in the entire game by Dan Campbell.
I understand, but the 2 field goals, Dan, one puts them up 3 scores. He did it at the end of the first half. The other one ties the game. It ties the game.
I don't think, especially if this is your take on things, you don't get to gloss over. He did it at the end of the first half.
Right.
So he gave you both versions of what you're supposed to do. He did go by feel. He was like, okay, I don't want to run the risk of them having the ball coming out to start the second half.
Correct.
And us just being up 14. Let me go by feel here. So he gave you both examples that you're asking for. And he saw where that got him, and he decided for a more aggressive tack the second time.
You could argue that backfired on him because you saw how quickly they made that 17-point lead disappear. You could almost argue he should have gone for it. You saw it paid off, and it hurt them in the second half.
And I understand that Wilkes made defensive adjustments, but it wasn't adjustments that turned that game around. It was luck because 3 consecutive drives from the Lions, this is how it went. Josh Reynolds drop. Pass was a little behind him, but it hit him in the hands. Gibbs fumble. Josh Reynolds drop. Niners got lucky, too.
No, wait, Mike, you're
off
forgetting.
the helmet catch.
Well, and the
That
Purdy
one,
pass,
that one.
That was the game.
Should have been picked.
That
but
was
I'm
the game.
that
That was insane.
That was an incredible play, and I understand that they picked the flag up afterwards. If Ayuk doesn't make that catch, maybe the flag stays down. So I understand that was a tremendous play, but I'm talking about they couldn't stop Detroit. And then they got 3 consecutive stops, and it wasn't because they were particularly awesome. It's because they got lucky.
Let's play some sound here from Dan Campbell. He's getting beat up, and he's saying, I know this is part of the gig. It's how it works. He's crushed, obviously, and Chris Cody has been fairly singing all morning around here. Everybody loves the aggressive coach until he's just a little too aggressive. Let's listen to Dan Campbell.
Sometimes you can only say so much. You got to live it, unfortunately. You got to get your heart ripped out, which we did. And it's a lesson learned. And look, I told those guys, this may have been our only shot. Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware. And it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year. That's the reality. And if we don't have the same hunger and the same work, which is a whole nother thing, once we get the offseason, then we got no shot of getting back here. I don't care how much better we get or what we add or what we draft. It's irrelevant. It's going to be tough. Everybody in our division is going to be loaded back up, and, you're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you, and which is fine, which is fine. But so it's hard. You want to make the most of every opportunity, and we had an opportunity, and we just couldn't close it out. It does. It stings. It stings.
That nose is red.
Why?
The reddest nose I've ever seen.
He's kind of right, too. It's not usually when someone makes their debut, it signals an era, especially if you look at the trajectory of season-over-season success that Dan Campbell's had there. But he's right. You look within their own division. The Packers look to be like a problem going forward. Mm-hmm. Caleb Williams is probably entering that division. Minnesota was hamstrung by a bunch of injuries this year.
That's still good.
It's not often that you find yourself conveniently, because of the way the Cowboys lose in the first round. There were a lot of things that broke their way this year, including a big lead in that game. It's hard to get back there, and Campbell actually had the right perspective.
There are a couple of things that I want to get to from that game, because San Francisco beat you even though Kittle did nothing, which I'm always stunned when Kittle does nothing.
He blocked.
Yeah.
He's like that, though. He's boomer bust, George Kittle. Like, it's weird. He has really good games and then just nothing burgers.
The sequence that Mike is talking about there, 4th down drop by Reynolds, dropped interception off of a face mask. I want you to understand how weird it is in one-on-one coverage to throw a football 50 yards downfield, hit someone in the face mask with it, and have it pop up in a way that's catchable. It's 50 yards.
In stride.
It's 50 yards. It's not a normal thing for the ball to pop up that way when you've thrown it 50 yards. Think about the think about the way the ball is shaped and the way a face mask is shaped. And if I threw it 50 yards 50 times, do you think I'm getting that bounce to Ayuk? Again, one more time. Then you get the third down drop by Reynolds. And I don't know that anyone feels worse than that dude today. Maybe Zay Flowers.
Definitely Zay Flowers.
I mean,
I do feel bad about the fourth down discourse because a lot of it is like, don't blame Dan Campbell, blame Josh Reynolds because he dropped an easy one. And it is a team loss. I feel bad for all of them.
You feel the worst for Zay Flowers today, though. If you're going to feel bad for someone out there.
Yes. Worst 30 seconds a player probably could have playing that position in an AFC championship game.
Let's go through what happened there because Stugotz, and I'm not someone who generally says the cliche of experience matters in those situations, but the two teams that coughed it up don't have any experience in those situations. And Detroit had one guy who does have experience in those situations, Goff, and it wasn't his fault. He can't also catch the ball. He made the throws that should result in the conversion.
Lamar can catch the ball.
Lamar can catch the ball. I thought that would have been an 80-yard touchdown if he had broken the ankle tackle.
It was close.
It would have been the best play we've ever seen.
Well, Romo said it was anyway.
It still was a great play.
He needed to clarify it was the best 13-yard play he's ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a Tony Romo question? I did this very briefly with Stugotz on God Bless Football. That'll come out soon, so this is not a retread. But I discovered something happening yesterday with Tony Romo where essentially everyone is over Tony Romo except Chris Cody, who tweeted out that he is in the best broadcast team that there is. Everyone everywhere in the world yesterday was pooping all over Tony Romo, saying, I cannot believe they better have an opt-out with this guy. There better be an option to get out of his contract. This guy is not doing a good job. And then Chris, 20 minutes later, is like, this is the best broadcast team I've ever heard. I think that everybody would want this team.
I'm totally with Chris.
I mean, they're just so good. I think everyone is just completely wrong. There's no debate about it. Jim Nantz is fantastic.
There is debate.
No, there's not.
Well, it's happening right now.
No, people are wrong. Everyone's wrong. Tony Romo, his enthusiasm, the info. I mean, Greg Olsen, I'm not saying Greg Olsen isn't also good, but just the height of it, it's fantastic.
I miss the predictive analysis. He used to do things that kept it exciting in the bedroom. Remember how we all fell in love with Tony Romo? It was, here's what's going to happen. When's the last time he's done that?
Greg Olsen is the new hot young thing, and Greg Olsen may have called his last game last game there as part of that broadcast team because that job is supposed to go to Tom Brady for $375 million guaranteed. Stugotz, I saw a sports media agent quoted anonymously, and I don't know why we would talk to these people anonymously, but CBS did talk to a sports media agent anonymously.
Okay.
And that agent said the following: every network would want Bill Belichick. He would revolutionize media.
What?
With the way he prepares.
Good play, deep out, good coaching.
I wonder who the agent was.
I don't know why you would quote a sports media agent anonymously. CBS Sports, shame on you. Don't do that. Make those people talk publicly with their name on things if they're going to say things like that. That Bill Belichick is going to revolutionize media? What the bleep are you talking about?
That's a sports media agent right there.
But Belichick is going to be blocked by Tom Brady for the good job. for the job that he wants, Brady's going to be able to decide whether or not he wants to do it for $375 million. And Rich Eisen has suggested that Belichick and Saban team together on something that is the equivalent of the Manning cast, where they just break down games. You have to get them right now because, Stugotz, the game evolves so much that Romo can no longer predict the plays, but Belichick still can.
Right. Yes.
Belichick can still.
You just can't stop him. I mean.
What do you think's the most absurd offer or email Bill Belichick's agents got in the last couple of weeks? He's got to be getting a lot of stuff like, "Hey, come on this show. You want to be on a reality show? Hey, Like there's got to be some weird ones out there of just like, hey, come, like I don't know, it's got to be wacky. There's got to be one email
he's
where
going to be on Masked Singer
where the agent actually
he's going to revolutionize the Masked Singer.
The Masked Singer. That's a perfect example of like, come on, Bill. Everyone thinks of you. Everyone looks at you this way. You want to change the narrative a little bit?
Mike Ryan was hoping, Stugotz. He came in today while you were doing God Bless Football, and he said, do you think Stugotz will surprise us with a take today? Do you think he will stun us? So far, we're 0 for 1. You have taken exactly the tack that he thought you would take with Dan Campbell, where you say, you're the guy who lost the game, therefore you're the reason that they lost. Right. What do you do, Stugotz, with the mathematical fact that next-gen stats say that in both instances he chose the most probable, best mathematical result to go for it in those situations, and the numbers I just gave you, that in plus territory, they went for it this year 20 of 24 times, and they made it 17 of the 20. So Dan Campbell says that as an assistant coach with New Orleans, he loved how afraid other teams were when Drew Brees was going for it on 4th and short, because of course you would be. And in that game, Stugotz, in the first half, I would have trusted the Detroit offense to do anything they wanted. Detroit was just gutting. They were gutting San Francisco in a way that was confusing to me to see them up 24-7. And I'm thinking when he kicks the field goal in that situation, I am thinking bury them. Go and bury them. I know you can get up by 3 touchdowns.
24-7 at half is...
I know, but he could have been up 28-7 if he had played the way he has played all season. I understand why he didn't, Stugotz. I understand the inconsistency. You understand what I'm saying when I say... when you're close to the end zone, those 3 yards are harder to get because you can't get behind the defense. There's no threat of getting behind the defense. So I understand kicking in that spot because of how congested everything gets in that situation. But Stugotz nationally is now responsible for what some people are calling the worst take in the history of sports takes, because Patrick Mahomes has now been in 4 Super Bowls in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andy Reid. I dare you to go 14-2 and allow Alex Smith to leave Arrowhead Stadium to leave Kansas City. Go ahead, I dare you, because of Patrick Mahomes. Because you think you could turn Patrick Mahomes into something that Alex Smith is not. Alex Smith is a very good quarterback. The audacity, first off, to do this to Alex Smith, who's been very good and loyal to Andy Reid and won him a lot of football games, to dangle Patrick Mahomes out there because Andy Reid thinks he's some sort of quarterback whisperer, which he is not, by the way. He is not, because if he was, Alex Smith would be better than he's been the last few years. So I dare.
That's a record for contradiction.
It's on Andy Reid.
The
only reason Alex Smith is not better is Andy Reid.
That sets a world record for Stugotz not paying attention to any of the things he said the sentence before.
I've listened to that probably, 10 or 15 times in the last 2 years. Yeah. The end gets me every time. It truly never gets old. It's better than any twist in any movie I've ever watched.
Well, thank you. If Alex Smith had that kind of defense, would have won a few Super Bowls. How about that?
Jessica, is that take from Stugotz? Because we have a rival now. We have a rival to that, the worst take on the Chiefs there's ever been.
I can't get anything right with this team.
Here is the rival to that, also from the Stugotz category.
Dan, this time of year, everyone talks about teams they don't want to see come playoff time. I want to talk about a team that I actually want to see come playoff time. I want to see the Chiefs. I want Patrick Mahomes strolling into my stadium with max confidence. I want Travis Kelce. I want Taylor Swift. I want the team that lost to Jordan Love. I want the team that lost to Aiden O'Connell. I want the team that trailed 17-0 to Jake Browning. That is the team that I would like to face in the playoffs. That's the team, indeed, that I would want to face in the playoffs, because that team is not very good. I have been saying for years there is something off in Kansas City. Last year, that take didn't go so well for me. They won the Super Bowl. This year, it's going very, very well. They are 10-6. They're down. The offense is not what it used to be. The defense doesn't travel well. They're good at home, not great on the road. If I'm a playoff team, I don't want Flacco. I don't want Mike Tomlin. I don't want any of those teams. The teams that I want strolling into my stadium, Kansas City Chiefs.
Shocking.
I still think the Alex Smith one's like a slightly better. Like it's a 1 seed.
Which
in the
is
tape
not,
bracket.
by the way.
I don't want Flacco.
I will say though, I thought like everyone collectively decided, figuratively and literally, 2 years ago, don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. Like he will do something crazy. He will win games. He is just that good. And I've stuck to my guns. I picked the Chiefs to play in the Super Bowl because I'm like the Dan Campbell of picking Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, I'm going to go for it every time. And he's going to win so many times that I'll be right more than I'm wrong. And so I feel great today because I knew all along, Stugotz, Patrick Mahomes is just inevitable.
The one that hurts today for me, Dan, because I was kind of right about the offense. It's not as good as it used to be. It's not as good as years past.
Yeah, they just went to the Super Bowl with 17 points.
Yeah, the defense doesn't travel is the one that's going to haunt me.
I mean,
That goes right in the teeth of the cliche that defense does travel.
Snead is overwhelming, and he had that same sequence that Jessica's talking about with Zay Flowers, which goes like this. First of all, the first part of it, Zay Flowers is wide open, catches the ball. I can't imagine a whole lot of things scarier than trying to tackle that dude in the open field, and Snead did. He tripped him, but I thought that was going to be a touchdown, should have been a touchdown because of how much room that he had. Snead tackles him. Snead gets taunted by him. Snead then later in that series knocks the ball out at the half-yard line and frustrates Flowers so much that he cuts his hand while slamming his helmet down and is ineffective the rest of the game. You guys mentioned Patrick Mahomes inevitable, and he made one throw in the second half, but they had 67 yards in the second half. They did nothing in the second half.
They didn't score. Right.
They did nothing. It's not just nuts.
But that pass to MVS, Dan, to put the game
Agreed.
to end, I was like, all right, that's
Agreed.
it. I've seen enough.
How great was it that that's how the Chiefs made it to the Super
was
Bowl? A
perfect.
team that has
It was
dropped more
perfect.
passes than everyone, that's had so many balls bounce off of receivers' hands, and that circus catch is what gets them
And
into the
he
Super
gets
Bowl.
to shush the crowd. Like that was like all of you all season. You shut up. That was not to that crowd. That was to the whole season.
Can we also talk about, by the way, the greatest penalty in the history of penalties, where the Ravens intentionally forced a 1st and 10 by giving them 15
that was
yards
great.
from a 1st and 5. I watched it. I was like, this is genius.
Well, that's
Why
actually
does this
no.
not happen
He
more
should have
often?
just jumped without aggressively hitting
That's
him. Then
correct.
It made no difference.
No, it would have been
No, it's
5
10
yards.
yards.
It
was
doesn't
10
matter,
extra.
though. It's the same result. What you wanted was for them to lose those 5 yards and make it 1st and 10. If you're going to do it, because you don't want it to be a ticky-tack thing where then they're like, we don't really need to call that one. Do it. You know what I mean?
Mahomes is such a star that history will remember that being the game. That's the dagger, the throw to MVS, but not Al Golden's vindication of Deion Bush intercepting Lamar Jackson as he threw into triple coverage. That's why he chose Brad Kaya.
The difference in that game was that Kansas City won it in the first half, Stugotz. And they won it in the first half, at least in part, because you can feel the differences between those two teams on third down. Mahomes kept converting those in the first half, and you didn't trust Baltimore to convert any of those. Lamar Jackson had a lot of undisciplined throws that weren't even just the interception, because the only way the Ravens can lose that game is if they did it the way that they did it, turning the ball over in the end zone, around the end zone.
Well, I mean, triple coverage, when a field goal isn't bad there.
No.
Like, take the points. You have the greatest field goal kicker of all time. Like, triple coverage in that spot. And I know people are isolating, likely getting pushed. That's when the ball's already in Bush's hands. Like, that was just a terrible decision. And he got away with others because they dropped interceptions.
Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers lost that game. Your two best offensive players lost that game. Baltimore played its worst offensive game of the season. They scored 10 points, and they were wildly undisciplined because people will talk about Flowers, but I think they will simply forget, Stugotz, that at the end of the first half, it's 14-7, and Van Noy decides, I'm going to headbutt Kelsey. And it's 15 yards, and now you just gave him 3 points.
I think Kelsey was setting that one up all game long.
He was setting it up beforehand by taking Tucker's tease before the game. He was trying to irritate them from the moment he came out. He's been trying to irritate everybody since he started dating Taylor Swift.
It's working.
It is working. That guy wins at everything.
Sandbagger.
11 catches on 11 targets against that safety and those linebackers. when Dan Campbell says how hard it is to get back there, and when Jessica says that Patrick Mahomes is inevitable, playoff games obviously hard to win. Road playoff games. Patrick Mahomes won one of those yesterday. The Lions haven't won one of those since 1957. It's pretty hard to win the road playoff games. How about this stat from Danny Parkins? This one's going to hurt Jessica. The Chicago Bears have 10 playoff wins in the modern era. Mahomes has 14.
Double doink hurts them there.
10 playoff wins in the entirety of the modern era. But Stugotz does have an opinion here, Mike. He does have an opinion, and I think that's going to surprise you. Are you ready? He's got the top 5 most important players or people for the Chiefs in 2023-2024. Are you ready?
I don't think he's going to surprise me here.
I think he is going to surprise you.
No,
He is going to surprise
No.
you.
Mike knows me.
Number
what he's doing.
Number 5.
Chris Jones. That guy is a menace.
Yes.
He is really good.
That's
man.
correct.
Yep.
That is correct.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Stugotz. That is good analysis. Yes, he is big and strong and scary.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Isaiah Pacheco. That guy is a menace, man.
He runs very hard. Number 3.
Rashee Rice. Their season turned the second he started to be productive. They needed him, and he delivered.
I know we talked about the tush push as being an unstoppable play, but I think given what Kelsey did yesterday, Cooper Kupp had some of this last year where you saw in the Super Bowl, no-look passes to a guy. We knew it was going to him. They didn't have any other receivers, and still it couldn't be stopped by the Bengals. The fact that they couldn't stop Kelsey when they're good at stopping someone like Kelsey.
Right.
They're when they have Hamilton and those linebackers covering people, tight ends can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he still had 11 catches on 11 targets.
Crazy.
It's not a stoppable thing.
When Hamilton hasn't surrendered a touchdown to any other tight ends this season, and he was brilliant in that game, the pass especially to Kelsey for that first score was phenomenal.
Knowing how good that Chiefs defense is, obviously, if I told you guys before the game the Chiefs were going to score 17, you'd feel pretty confident Baltimore's winning,
Yeah,
right?
hot take. Spags should be talked about as one of the greatest DCs ever.
Number 2.
Spags!
Wait a minute. There's some people missing here. Wait a minute. Where you can't.
Wow,
there's
so
no
far
Kelsey,
this is
no
very
Mahomes.
surprising.
And finally, number 1 most important people or players for the Chiefs in 2023-2024.
Around the Chiefs. Zay Flowers!
Around the Chiefs. No Mahomes, no Kelsey.
No Snead.
It's only 17 points that they scored. And Lamar Jackson's going to get dragged all day today, right? Because your MVP has to be better than that.
Mm-hmm. I tried to warn him a week ago. Like last week, he was the greatest quarterback, most important player in the NFL. And this week, it started early this morning with several people, not me, but several people ripping Lamar Jackson. Yes.
Not you, though. Was there anyone else watching the game after it was 7-7 that was like, oh, it's going to be a shootout?
Right.
My watch party said that. They're like, oh, a little instant classic on our hands.
Romo said, well, it says shootout, Jim.
I love that.
Can you explain to me why it is that I kept hearing on the broadcast last night that Purdy's not that athletic? I'm like, have you seen the Dolphins quarterback run in
Because
the
he
open
dresses
field?
like Mr. Rogers.
Is that what it is? Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Is Purdy seen as unathletic because he dresses like Mr. Rogers? Because he looked pretty quick scooting out of the pocket to me.
Oh, he has not flashed that all season long. Like occasionally he'll scamper off and you'll be like, oh, that's surprising. But 50-plus rushing yards.
What did he have, 3 fewer than Lamar did yesterday?
I would have been less surprised if a UFO landed on the field. And it wasn't just like the 50 yards. It was him escaping, breaking tackles, looking strong, even though he does not look 6'1" at all out there.
The thing that was most impressive to me, Stugotz, about what Spags and the Chiefs defense did is that they not only, because this is what neutralized Baltimore. Baltimore was excellent, at least in part this year, because they could run the ball and throw it to the tight ends. If I now just make it, hey, Lamar, Zay's your only option. Because there were no other options. They're tight ends. The tight ends, he's been
couple of catches for Beckham, but there were no other options. You're right.
But Lamar Jackson, I told you this last week, the two most efficient plays in the sport this season were Jackson to Likely and Jackson to Andrews. They were non-factors yesterday, the both of them. They took the tight ends away, and also Lamar Jackson, you'd take that before the game if you're Kansas City, 50-something rushing yards from Lamar Jackson.
Why did Gus Edwards only carry 3 times? They're a great rushing team. Edwards looked good. Edwards was averaging 6.7 yards per carry. He had one long one.
The last 5 games that Kansas City has played, they've allowed 3.4 yards per carry. You can't run against them. Nobody
certainly couldn't pass on them. It was a 17-10 final score. They were always within a spread that said we could keep running the ball here. They have one of the greatest running threats, if not the greatest, at the quarterback position ever. I don't understand it. Everything about their offense was predicated on the run doing that and then doing well, and it's setting up the pass, and they just had a really strange game plan too.
But you did hear what I said, though, right? They couldn't run against Kansas City, and if I told you before the game, Kansas City's game plan is make the MVP beat you. That's not a great game plan.
But the thing is, they could run against them. Lamar averaged, there were 3 ball carriers, not counting Zay Flowers in those gimmicky plays. There were 3 ball carriers. 2 of them averaged over 6 yards per carry. They abandoned the run. They ceased running the ball, and it killed them.
Jessica, you said you wanted to get in here?
Well, the Bills ran pretty well against the Chiefs last weekend, too. I don't know. I guess my question for Stugotz, just to change the subject slightly here, when you saw Bob Weir on the sideline of the NFC Championship game, did you understand why people freak out when they see Taylor Swift, or no?
Well, I mean, I understand it, but Bob Weir is a classic, old-school San Francisco 49ers fan. In fact, he ended the set in Mexico a couple of years ago with the Niners on the television. He said, we'll be back in a minute, go Niners. And so I do understand why people freak out over Taylor Swift. I was laughing at Taylor Swift being annoyed by the TVs. They kept going to her, and she was annoyed by it. She was in the back of the suite. She didn't want to be seen. Give me a break, okay? You're Taylor Swift. You don't want to be seen. You don't want people to make a big deal about you going to these games. Don't go to the games, okay? Don't go to them.
I don't think she was doing that, but I will say, as someone who I'm not a Swiftie, but I like Taylor Swift. I am a Deadhead. I love Bob Weir. I want both of them, camera feed on them the entire. I will watch. You guys can watch Saban and Belichick. I'm watching the Bob Weir Taylor Swift cast for the Super Bowl. That's all I want.
Bob looks good, huh?
He looks great.
Yes.
Not gonna lie, he's kind of hot.
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
Why are you taking that as a compliment on behalf of Bob Weir?
I don't see.
He gets criticized all the time. No, he's hot.
This is looking great.
He looks good.
He's a young 80.
He looks discombobulated.
I mean, Dan, that's the acid.
Mustache rides from Bob
Who said
Weir.
that?
Sorry about that.
I don't know, Stugotz, why it is that people would be that furious that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce do seem authentically really happy. It's classic American hating. They just seem super happy together. They're winning at everything, and everyone gets mad about it.
Did you see the good news? I saw a breakdown that someone did for a group of friends, because Taylor has a number of shows in Japan next week, and the last show, I believe, is on February 10th. So they were doing math to figure out, is it possible for Taylor to make it back to Las Vegas in time for the Super Bowl? And it turns out, if the show ends around 11 or 12, the flight back, I think they said it was roughly 17 hours or so, give or take a little bit, and they believe that Taylor will be able to arrive in Las Vegas Saturday night around 8 or 9 p.m., so should be able to make it to the game on Sunday. So Taylor should be able to make it there, guys.
Video is telling me that Bob Weir looks like Heimerdinger. I don't know that character, but that is what
You
you're
said it so
saying.
confidently. I'm surprised you don't know it.
Sold it well.
Stop talking to Dan directly, please.
Wait, can I ask you a
I do
question,
see
though?
the
This is like the
resemblance,
fourth
though.
time I've asked.
This guy is 76 years old, okay? 76 years old. He was part of the acid test, okay? They would sit around, take acid, they'd play music, get creative, come up with music. He has taken so many tabs of acid, so many mushrooms, so many drinks, smoked so much pot. And at the age of 76, does he not look good after all of that?
I mean, he looks
what's your
106. His face looks a little bit crooked. His mouth looks a bit crooked. Just there's a lot.
He looks like a Dr. Seuss character.
He does. He looks like a Who. He was on
And?
Stupidity, I think, last year, the year before.
When Stugotz accidentally broke some news with him.
Bit of a yammer. Guy can talk, man.
Trying
It
to get
really
him on
was a
God
tough
Bless
edit.
this week,
Please
though.
don't.
I'm trying.
Don't not do that.
Why?
Let's have him on the show.
What is Dan going to ask Bob Weir? You want him on?
not,
Let's do it.
Not
After hearing him
particularly.
talk, I understood why their songs are 30 minutes long.
His songs also yammer. put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do Bob Weir's songs also yammer?
Who do you guys like? Come on. You don't like Taylor Swift. You don't like Bob Weir. Get out of here.
The only thing America likes today in unison is field goals. You should have kicked him, Dan Campbell. Everybody agrees. All of a sudden, we've got a place in sports where everyone agrees. Jessica, it's you and me over to the side being like, why does everyone want Dan Campbell now to be cowardly?
Dan, we're disappointed because we fell in love with Dan Campbell. We fell in love with this Lions team. If the Lions can do it, any team has hope, right? They became America's team, and so I think some of the frustration that you're getting today as it relates to Dan Campbell, there are certainly arguments that, Campbell, he stuck to what he did to get the Lions to the NFC Championship game. But the argument you're hearing is how badly people wanted the Lions to make it to the Super Bowl.
That is what's happening.
Yes.
And so, therefore, we all agree. I wanted to see the kicker more. Billy, do you think that anyone in Ravens in-game festivities or marketing when they brought out Terrell Suggs emotionally late in the game to fire up the crowd and show his championship ring off to people? Do you think that anyone in Ravens front office or marketing took inventory of the fact that the last championship Terrell Suggs won, it was for the Kansas City Chiefs?
I don't think that they were thinking that.
I'm also just learning this information too.
I knew that because it was the Super Bowl that was down here, and I had the task of, for ESPN Radio, running around and handing my phone to players so that they could join Mike Tannenbaum's Super Bowl recap live on ESPN Radio. And I got Terrell Suggs. He was the person that I got. I ran up and I gave him the phone, and he got the exclusive with Mike Tannenbaum right after the game. And I was very nervous, one, that my phone was going to die, two, that I wasn't going to have reception, and three, that he was just going to run away with my phone, because I heard stories headed into it that players had taken people's phones before. They just got so excited, and they went into the locker room, and then you don't have access to the locker room, and then your phone is gone, and then you have to find someone that can go in there and find your phone. It's a whole thing. So it was a very stressful thing. And it was my first time that I was covering the Super Bowl at the game, so I didn't want to let the bosses down. So I got Terrell Suggs, and then I didn't successfully get anyone else. But I heard they were very excited because they got Terrell Suggs before he was on TV, which is a big get, even though he didn't really factor that much into the game.
People do seem to be freaking out about this being a rematch from the game that happened like right before the COVID-19 shutdown during the last election cycle. So I don't know. Maybe this will like undo the curse. Maybe the Niners win this one and things go back to normal now.
It's
Probably
weird.
Not.
It feels like a nostalgic Super Bowl, even though they last played 4 years ago. So much about the world has changed since their last matchup that I'm a little worried something bad is going to happen 4 weeks after the Super Bowl.
Can't get worse.
Is this where we're at, where we're now afraid of things that are imaginary?
Yes.
We've
been there, Billy.
Really? You think that if the 49ers win, it's not going to undo COVID? I have bad
didn't
news
know
for
I was doing the
everybody.
show with John McClane.
Maybe my great aunt will come back to life. Who knows?
Kansas City in that game, I think people get forgetful about how badly outcoached Kansas City was in that game. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, and they converted some 3rd and something ridiculous to Tyreek Hill with a flutter ball.
Yes.
But like with Garoppolo, San Francisco was a pass away from winning that game, and Kansas City had to come back because they got smothered with a much better offense than the one they're going into this game with. They got smothered most of that game.
Double-digit lead in that one.
I think it's the 5th time in NFL history there's been a rematch of coaches in the Super Bowl. And, of course, we have Tom Coughlin beating Bill Belichick twice. But all 4 other times, the coach that won the first time won the second time. That's amazing.
I'm just ready for all the AI-written blog posts and articles on they showed you why they went with Brock Purdy over Jimmy Garoppolo, because when it came time to make the throw, because we all know there's going to be a time in that Super Bowl he's going to have to make a play that Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't.
Put it on the poll, please. Who do you feel worst for today, Zay Flowers or the city of Detroit? Because the city of Detroit is waking up today with a feeling that's going to feel like just an empty sort of sickness. Let's put up this photo of Eminem at the game shooting birds at everybody during a happier time when they were, I'm guessing they were winning at that point and things felt better.
I was thinking about this morning. There's a lot of different ways to give the finger, right? Like that's one of the meanest ways. That's like I really
with the
don't
saddles,
like you.
with the
Double
sides,
kickstands.
side,
exactly. If you just do like one solo finger, it's like hee hee.
Okay.
We
It's
were
just
robbed of a great celebrity musician matchup in the Super Bowl. The dichotomy of Taylor Swift and her fan base with Eminem and his fan base.
Right.
He should have leaned in. He should have started dating Sam Laporta.
Can you show for me, please, on video, because I don't know what happened here, Stugotz. Was this playful, what was happening before the game with Mahomes and Justin Tucker, where Justin Tucker is coming in with his kicking tees and he's putting them in Mahomes' area, and Mahomes and Kelsey are going back and forth and they're pulling and kicking Tucker's tees? Is this a playful thing here?
Little gamesmanship, Dan, you know?
Because Chris Cody, what did you think here? Because it seems like Mahomes might be playing, but I don't know that Kelsey is playing here.
It all seems playful to me. Justin Tucker seems to be smiling.
Right.
I feel like these guys have hung out at Pro Bowls. I don't know. I didn't see this as a real incident. This seemed playful.
A real incident.
I thought it was
where
a
people have to
giant
be
incident.
separated and stuff. This is just guys having fun with each other.
The tell is the guy in the black coat that appears next to Justin Tucker after the second one, right? So the first one's hey, Justin Tucker laughs it off. He pats him on the back, and it's a whole thing. Then look at the guy over there. See him at the right of the screen in the black coat. There you go. Watch him. The second time, he throws up his hands, and he's like, what's up? That guy was ready to throw down. Watch this. Oh, there he goes. Watch the hands. Here we go. They're coming now. If you're listening on the podcast, this makes no sense. There they are.
To me, what I saw here was just classic Travis Kelce wanting to get in on the attention. This is Mahomes messing with Tucker, and then Kelce kind of sees it. He's like, "Oh, I want to go do that too. This is fun. Oh, there's cameras getting this. Let me go be part of this." It's Mahomes and Tucker were already doing this thing, and then
They're just doing a little Peanuts bit.
Yeah,
It's a comic strip happening.
Kelsey injected himself.
I'm
I'm
not.
just I want some of its attention.
I'm not going to pretend to know what a field goal kicker's pregame routine is supposed to be. I just find that a very odd place to be warming up field goals with.
It's a 10-yard field goal from there.
I think Justin Tucker's got that one down.
Stugotz, when it comes to Dolphin analysis around here, I would say that it's probably not too much of a coincidence that all four of the teams that you were watching yesterday have dominant tight ends. The Dolphins do not have a dominant tight end.
They're a tight end away.
The thing that I wanted to ask you, though, as it relates to Kelsey is I don't want to get forgetful. I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but Gronk is the best tight end we've ever seen, and Brady is the best quarterback we've ever seen. But how soon are the two guys in Kansas City, if they haven't already done it at tight end, how soon before they take over the conversation on I'm the best that there's ever been at that position?
I think Kelsey is. For Mahomes, it's 5 Super Bowl victories from now.
I mean, he's not going to play till he's 45. Brady played in 10 Super Bowls. Mahomes is halfway there, and he's got, if he plays as long as Brady, he's got 15 more years to get to 10 Super Bowls played in. I don't think anyone is going to play anymore as long as Brady does, and Mahomes' body isn't going to hold up because he doesn't play the same way that Tom Brady does. So it's unreasonable to expect him to even play into his early 40s or any quarterback to play into their early 40s.
I mean, he's 1-2. Brady 1-7. He's got 5 to go, I guess. I maybe if we get to 5, we'll start having that conversation, but he still has to win 5 Super Bowls, Dan, and he has to win one without the Chiefs. He does. He has to get to 6 with the Chiefs and then go to a really bad team and win a Super Bowl in his first season with them, and then we can start discussing.
You'll always be able to say that Brady was 2-0 against Patrick Mahomes in the postseason, and one of them in the Super Bowl.
The only 2 losses that Mahomes has, he's 8-2 when he falls down in a playoff game by more than 7, and the only time he hasn't been able to recover is against Tom Brady. But Stugotz, you are someone who consistently, when it comes to quarterback play, you will never put anyone other than Brady there because all you do by way of measurement, I understand it, is winning.
Mm-hmm.
Winning. Even though Tom Brady won one of those Super Bowls scoring 13 points.
But he won.
Yes. But I would say there are many people watching football these days who would say that the skill set that Mahomes has for a quarterback is better than Brady's. I think a lot of people listening to this would make the argument that he can beat you in more ways, and now he has this thing that Jessica's talking about at 28, which Brady didn't have this at 28. He's inevitable. He's 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls because don't bet against him. He's hard. This one is tough to come by. Brady got that later in his life. He didn't have it. His first Super Bowl run, Brady threw 1 touchdown past the entire playoff run. It took him a minute to get to where Mahomes is now. Mahomes is further along now than Brady was at the same age in terms of just evaluating the skill set.
Dan, you're right. Brady, that first season, the first Super Bowl, he replaced Drew Bledsoe. He was a game manager. I mean, that's really what he was. And Bill loved him because he didn't turn the ball over. And so and they ended up winning a Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes is not the reason. Dan, every team's different, and sometimes you need help, and Mahomes is no different. And this year, the defense is really helping him out.
They are helping him out, but what you just said about Brady, just don't turn the ball over. That's what Mahomes did yesterday.
100, and Lamar did.
But that's why
Yes.
they won the game. Baltimore's defense isn't just great. They cause turnovers.
Yes.
Like, they're good at turnovers,
Right.
and Mahomes didn't turn the ball over. But they did nothing in the second half except the one throw at the end of the 67 yards in a half, Stugotz, is dreadful. Baltimore's defense ransacked Kansas City the second half of that game. Kansas City won that game by simply winning the first half and then just watching Baltimore punch itself in the face the second half.
It was so interesting because you have the two-time MVP versus Patrick Mahomes, and you figure offensive fireworks. You figure that. But these two defenses were two of the best in the NFL the entire season. And the game played out exactly like that, even with those two guys playing quarterback.
Jessica said shootout. She said shootout. It was 7-7
We all felt
shootout.
I
it.
didn't
We all
say
felt it.
shootout.
Yeah.
Everyone else said shootout.
Your watch party, yes.
You would
Not the ball knowers.
Romo.
We all knew.
You would agree, Stugotz. I know we're talking about the Detroit disintegration, but Baltimore disintegrated.
Yes.
The taunting, the penalties, the stupid penalties, the turning the ball over twice in that kind of game in and around the end zone. I know Detroit, because they were the last game and because they were up 24-7, are going to be accused more of disintegrating today, but the way Baltimore played was super immature.
You know how I know the Chiefs are good? Because they did the fumble into the end zone and they still won the game. That's inevitability.